Ever feel like just keeping up with the world means hitting refresh every 5 seconds? And I swear some days it's even faster than that.
Tell me about it.
Well, today we are diving into something that's changing even faster than the trends. We're talking artificial intelligence.
Oh, this is going to be good.
We're dissecting an episode sent in from one of our listeners of Tech Talk Nexus. And let me tell you, it really digs deep into building a future with AI instead of just letting AI build it for us.
You know, that's actually one of the things I loved about this episode. It went way beyond just the cool things AI can do, which, let's be real, there are a lot.
So true. But they go past all that.
They really focus on the responsibility part of AI, which honestly is something we should all be thinking about a lot more.
100%. And one of the first things that they talk about really stuck with me. They waste no time reminding everyone just how much power AI already has in our lives. Yeah. And not in some future robots kind of way, but right now, today.
Yeah, forget the robots taking over the world. It's the algorithms deciding if you can get a loan or which ads you see. Heck, even just what's trending online at this very second.
It's kind of wild when you think about it. And at Tech Talk Nexus had this great term for the feeling we all get sometimes. They call it the black box problem.
Ooh, yeah. It's like, some AI out there just made this decision about you impacting your life, but you have absolutely no clue how it happened or why.
Ugh. Yes. Okay, I was going to say, I've totally felt that way before, but couldn't put it into words. It's like when social media flags your post or something, but you have no idea why, and they definitely don't tell you. Is that just like how algorithms are? You're not really supposed to know how they work?
Well, yeah, some of it's really complex, but what this episode really drives home is that we can't just throw our hands up and say AI is too complicated, especially not now. Not when AI is literally making life-changing decisions about people. Tech Talk Nexus had this great point about how we need what they call explainable AI. It's like demanding transparency.
So not just smarter AI, but AI that can show its work. Like, here's how I came to this conclusion.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, I like where they're going with that.
Think about it. If, a loan officer rejects your application, you can at least ask them why, right? We deserve that same kind of transparency from AI.
That makes so much sense. But, this episode, it does even more than that. They go even further. It's not just about making the algorithms more see-through. They're saying building ethical AI starts way before you even get to that part.
Oh, absolutely. One of the things they really hammer home is the importance of having a bunch of different people working on this stuff. If it's just the same types of folks building every AI with the same blind spots we all have as humans, well, you're just going to build those biases right into the system.
It's like that saying, if all you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail.
Yeah.
You need different tools and perspectives to build something that works for everyone, right?
Exactly.
Okay, yeah. This is already blowing my mind. We're just getting started. But what really stood out to you? What was your biggest takeaway?
For me, it was their discussion on global standards. That really got me thinking. They made a really strong argument that AI is just too powerful, way too impactful to be left up to one company or even one country to decide how it should be used.
It's almost like international ground rules for AI. I mean, that seems crazy ambitious, but also kind of necessary when you really think about it.
Right. And it's not just some far-off futuristic thing either. They brought up real-world examples of this already happening, right now.
Wait, seriously? Like what?
So they talked about how the European Union is already working on actual guidelines, even regulations, for AI.
Wow. Okay. Now that's impressive. They're actually taking action.
It kind of makes you hopeful,
It does. Maybe we really can steer this tech in a direction that's good for everybody, but how do you make sure those rules are actually followed?
Right. That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Because it sounds great on paper, but how do you actually make it happen?
Yeah, turning those ethical ideas into actual rules everyone has to follow is...
Yeah.
Well, that's the hard part. And how do you even teach a machine about things like fairness? What's fair to you and fair to me, are they always the same? And common sense. I mean, we humans don't even have that figured out half the time. Did Tech Talk Nexus have any good ideas on that?
Well, they said something that really stuck with me. They said instead of getting lost in all the tiny little details of specific rules you could write down, it's better to focus on the bigger picture.
I like that. Big picture thinking. I'm all about it.
Right. So making sure that the whole process of developing AI from the very beginning is guided by actual human values.
Okay, so less about telling the AI every single do and don't, and more setting the goals and priorities from the start, making sure it's built with those in mind.
Exactly. They actually compared it to architecture. If you're designing a skyscraper, you wouldn't design the whole thing and then think about if it will fall over, right?
I mean, I hope not.
You think about stability and safety right from the start.
Yeah.
It's got to be part of the foundation the whole thing is built on.
Okay, yeah. I see what they're saying. You can't just slap on ethics at the very end like an afterthought. It's got to be in the AI's DNA from day one. But how do we actually make that happen? It still feels kind of, I don't know. Like, how do you actually do that?
Well, Tech Talk Nexus suggested a few things. They said it has to be a team effort, and that a really important part of it is actually public awareness. Like, people need to be engaged with this stuff.
You're saying it's not just on the tech people to fix.
Exactly. They were saying that the more people know about AI, really understand it, both what it can do and what the risks are, the more we can all work together to make sure it's being developed responsibly. They even compared it to the environmental movement.
Oh, interesting. I mean, we all want clean air and water, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of makes sense. Like, we all have a stake in making sure we don't destroy the planet.
Exactly. And just like we all have a responsibility to protect the environment, we've got to do the same with AI. And a big part of that is also making sure people actually know how AI systems work.
More transparency. I'm seeing a theme here.
Right. Because it's like the more you understand something, the less scary it seems.
Totally. It's like, I don't know exactly how my phone works, but I know enough to not be afraid of it most of the time. But getting everyone up to speed on AI, isn't that going to be really hard?
For sure, it's a challenge. It's complicated stuff, and there's so much info out there, and not all of it is good info, That's why Tech Talk Nexus was saying it's so important to have resources that are actually easy to understand.
So people can understand these conversations, not just feel lost in a sea of tech jargon.
Yeah.
That's important.
Because it's not even just about understanding the tech itself. We need to be talking about the ethics of it all, too. And that part gets kind of ignored sometimes.
Because knowing how an algorithm works is one thing. But deciding if it should work that way is a whole other thing.
Exactly. And that's where Tech Talk Nexus brought up this really interesting example. Imagine AI being used in healthcare,
Okay.
And it's making actual life or death decisions.
Whoa. Okay, now that is a lot of responsibility to put on AI.
Right. Suddenly, it's not just about some algorithm being right or wrong. It's about bias and fairness and who gets to decide what's right for another person.
And there are no easy answers to those questions.
Not at all.
It really makes you think. It's not just about making AI better or smarter. It's about taking a good, hard look at our own values and priorities as humans, and then figuring out how to build those into AI.
That's exactly it.
So it's not about stopping AI. It's about making sure it's going in the right direction.
Exactly. And Tech Talk Nexus said something that really stuck with me. They said, we're kind of at a crossroads now. The choices we make today are going to decide what our future with AI looks like.
No pressure, right?
Right. No pressure. But on a more practical note, we were talking about the European Union making some moves on regulating AI. Did they get into specifics?
Oh, yeah, they did. They talked about how the EU is really focused on transparency, like making sure people actually understand how AI is making decisions that affect their lives.
Okay, yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Especially with all that talk about the black box problem earlier, how sometimes you just don't know what an AI is thinking or why it's making the choices it does.
Right. And the EU is calling it like a right to explanation when it comes to AI.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. But, that's tough to figure out. Like, how do you make a rule like that apply to all these different kinds of technology?
See, it's not like they're all built the same way.
Exactly. So they're also really pushing for something they're calling human oversight.
Human oversight? What's that? It's kind of like no matter how automated a system is, there should always be a way for humans to step in and, hit the pause button if things are going sideways.
Okay, so like an emergency brake for AI.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, gotta have those safeguards, right?
It's like we're all for innovation, but we also got to make sure things don't go totally off the rails. So it sounds like the EU is really taking the lead on this, but what about, the rest of the world?
Yeah, and Tech Talk Nexus talked about that too, and they actually ended on a pretty thought-provoking note. They were saying that navigating this whole AI thing, well, it's not something any single country can do on its own,
It's a global problem that needs a global solution.
Exactly. Kind of like climate change, but with algorithms instead of greenhouse gases.
That's a good way to put it. I hadn't thought about it like that before.
And they made this other really interesting point, comparing AI now to, the early days of the internet.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
Remember when it was brand new and nobody knew what the rules were or what it was even going to become?
Oh, totally. Back when we had dial-up and those really janky websites.
Right. And we all know what a huge impact the internet ended up having, and let's be honest, not all of it was good.
Definitely some downsides.
So Tech Talk Nexus seems to be saying that AI is kind of at that same point now, and that we have this chance to learn from our mistakes, to be more intentional this time around.
Less move fast and break things, and more like look before you leap.
Yes, exactly. Recognize that AI has amazing potential, but also be very real about the risks that come with it. And more than anything, make sure AI ends up benefiting everyone, not just a select few.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
And I think that is the perfect note to wrap up this deep dive on. If there's one thing I hope our listeners take away from all of this, it's that the future of AI is still being written. It's not like some movie where it's already decided. Every single one of us has a say in how this story unfolds. So stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, stay engaged. The future is waiting for us.